Greetings from True Crime Case Files, where we explore the most startling and puzzling murders. Today, we bring you to Leavenworth, Kansas, a conservative town that seems to be calm. But the hidden existence of one woman resulted in a grisly murder that devastated the whole. The tale of DeAnna Andrews, a loyal housewife, and her secret affair had the community in stitches. DeAnna Andrews was 32 when her relationship with a neighbor's adolescent daughter ended tragically and violently. Years old and the epitome of the ideal Midwestern housewife, she resided in a peaceful. Her life seemed to be in a conservative area with a tight-knit community. 3 lively triplets, Carlin, a loving husband, and a lovely house that looks like something from a family comedy. DeAnna was very engaged in the community, particularly at her children's. From PTA meetings to cookie sales, DeAnna volunteered at every school function. She was also involved in food drives and fundraisers for families in need are often organized by the local charity CHAR. Her kind disposition made her a well-liked neighbor to the outer world. DeAnna seemed to have it all. Her husband, Ryan Andrews, was a prosperous corporate attorney. Renowned for his efforts in assisting large retailers in identifying legal gaps so they may build their outlets in. The family often visited Union Lutheran of Leavenworth, where DeAnna was a member, in third world nations. Led a women's Bible study group, they were the kind of family you'd anticipate seeing on a. DeAnna seemed to be happy and picture-perfect in her Christmas card, but she was really having difficulties. Over the years, Ryan's demanding profession kept him away from his wife, and their marriage had become chilly and aloof. Home for weeks at a time, and during his stay there, he was often busy with the couples. DeAnna felt alone and sexually dissatisfied when their once strong relationship eroded. Started to want for something exciting to break up the routine of her daily existence in the early 2018. DeAnna discovered that thrill in a very surprising place, her neighbor Cassidy, who is 18. What began as a cordial mentoring relationship with DeAnna taught Cassidy how to quote behave like a. Their relationship swiftly deteriorated from being a decent Christian woman to something far worse. Into a covert sexual relationship with DeAnna, being more and more fixated on the young lady she was. Fascinated by Cassidy's youthfulness and vitality, which she thought she had lost over the years. Became DeAnna's means of escape and a means of addressing the vacuum left by her failing marriage in the days before. DeAnna's behavior grew more unpredictable before she passed away. She stopped participating in her regular activities and became increasingly protective of Cassidy. Her loved ones could see that something was really off, but nobody could have foreseen the awful event that would occur on September morning. After a hard night on the 5th, 2018, Ryan Andrews entered his house in Leavenworth, Kansas. Workplace, soon after 8 in the morning. And the sunlight was already radiating through the windows. The home was unusually quiet considering that all 3 of his children, Carlin, Castle, and Kingsley, were there. Ryan anticipated finding his wife DeAnna busy when they were typically awake and getting ready for school. About preparing breakfast in the kitchen, but when he arrived, it was deserted. He yelled out for DeAnna. However, there was no response, and as he made his way upstairs to their bedroom, a feeling of worry started to creep in. Ryan was pulling the bedroom door open when he saw it was slightly jarred. DeAnna was laying on the floor beside their bed when he saw the image that would haunt him for the rest of his life. She had been shot to death, and the room was in ruins, with her nude and a pool of blood around her head. The furniture was overturned, the bed was not made, and there were glass fragments all over the floor. Was evident that there had been a serious altercation, and Ryan remained still for a while, his thoughts battling to take in what he was seeing, and then panic struck. He hurried to Dean's side in a frantic attempt to rouse him up. But when Ryan realized she was gone, it was too late, so he picked up his phone and rang 911. Ryan's 911 call was frantic, and he was shivering as he attempted to describe what had occurred to the operator. He informed the operator that his wife had been shot, his voice hardly controlled. Ryan was obviously shocked and the operator attempted to calm him down since she wasn't breathing. When the police came a little while later, they discovered Ryan seated on the floor beside DeAnna's corpse. His eyes were big and his face was pallid as he was led outside and put in a police vehicle After police arrived on the site, word of DeAnna's death swiftly circulated among the nearby neighbors, who had seen the disturbance started congregating outside the Andrews residence and speaking to one another as they. In an attempt to make sense of what had transpired, local news outlets such as KCTV quickly appeared. Cameras shooting on the scene as they provided live coverage from the peaceful suburban street that has become the focus of the Leavenworth Police Department's grisly murder investigation. Arrived to the Andrews residence shortly after Ryan's September 5, 2018, 911 call. Vince Guy, a 15-year veteran with a reputation for being composed, arrived first and swiftly. After assessing the situation and requesting backup, cops quickly crowded the quiet suburban street. Cars with red and blue lights darting through the quiet detective algae in the early morning. One, a thorough investigator known for resolving CONF complex problems, was tasked with oversee the investigation. When the cops arrived at the house, they discovered a chaotic crime scene. The bedroom was completely disorganized, with the mattress askew in several parts, the bed unmade, and the shattered glass on the floor and the knocked-over furniture indicated a battle had. DeAnna Andrews was shot in the head, and her dead corpse was found on the floor by the bed. Blood had been drawn around her as the apparent cause of death, deeply discoloring the beige carpet. Using a trained eye, Red Detective Wandel examined the scene and noted DeAnna's body and the surrounding items while mentally recording all that happened. The scenario conveyed a sense of despair and violence, as seen by the bruises on DeAnna's arms and legs, which revealed traces of a fight. According to the room state, DeAnna had put up a fierce fight against her assailant, who was carrying a murder weapon. When a little pistol was discovered on the ground next to DeAnna's corpse, it was promptly taken as evidence, and the glass fragments and a number of other objects from the room, forensic experts in white, systematically moving around the bedroom in coveralls, checking for fingerprints, and collecting samples of the blood stains. They took pictures of the whole area, recording every detail that may. Ryan Andrews, who was still in a state hospital, was interrogated by outside Officer Pinsky as part of the inquiry. Of shock, Ryan said that when he got home from work early that morning, he discovered DeAnna's corpse. As the interrogation went on in the morning, he maintained that he had no clue who may have done this to his wife. Continuing, Ryan's responses were halting and rambling, expressing his sadness and incredulity. Understanding Ryan's emotional condition, but also understanding that time was of the importance, the first. She was determined to collect as much evidence as she could in the crucial 48 hours after a homicide. The inquiry was barely getting started before any clues were lost, but the scene at the Andrews residence had already given the investigators a number of hints that would direct them in their hunt for Dean's. The first suspect in the case, 18-year-old neighbor and murderer Cassidy Morris, was well known in the Leavenworth, Kansas, area. She was a bright, self-reliant young lady about to graduate. Cassidy was well liked by her friends at Leavenworth High School that month and was well known for her rebellious living in a community where traditional beliefs often governed her behavior. She had just gained acceptance to pursue a degree in environmental science at the University of Texas in Austin. A love she had grown to have while working as a volunteer at the neighborhood animal shelter and engaging in climate change demonstrations in spite of her vivacious outward Cassie's sexual relationship. What started out as a mentoring swiftly turned into a tumultuous relationship with DeAnna Andrews. Hidden, intense affair that made Cassidy feel more and more confined. DeAnna, who at first pretended to be a person who helped Cassidy navigate their community's standards, quickly turned into a possessive and Cassidy's dominating spouse often asks her to try things much beyond of her comfort zone. Friends saw a shift in her conduct. She avoided social gatherings and became more reclusive. And missing out on her regular hangouts, such as the neighborhood Starbucks where she and her pals would often. When Cassidy was brought in for interrogation by Detective Olga Wandel and her squad, they were. The investigators were especially curious about her sexual connection with DeAnna since they were aware of DeAnna's possessiveness could have been the driving force for Cassidy's murderous response during. She seemed anxious throughout the inquiry, avoiding eye contact and fidgeting with her hands. When the investigator questioned Cassidy about her connection with DeAnna, initially, Cassidy was hesitant to answer several questions, but as they went on, she acknowledged that Cassidy had lately been resentful of her and DeAnna's love connection. Explained how, in the weeks before her death, DeAnna had become more unpredictable. She spoke about how DeAnna would often phone her at any time of day and insist that she drop. Cassidy also said that DeAnna had threatened to divulge everything in order to have sex with her. These threats have caused Cassidy a lot of pain if she had attempted to leave their relationship. Of stress, and DeAnna's incessant need for control had begun to suffocate her when she was asked. Cassidy said that she was studying at a friend's residence the night of the murder. The investigators took note of her alibi for the final examinations, but they were still dubious because of the stress in her connection to DeAnna. Cassidy's anxious manner throughout the questioning only intensified their concerns. The investigator asked her for further information, but Cassidy insisted that she. Despite her claims, Cassidy's innocence suggested that she was not involved in DeAnna's murder. She was a prominent suspect due to her relationship with the victim and the tense nature of their relationship. The investigators understood they had to delve more into Cassidy's tale in order to. The next individual being investigated to either confirm or rule out her participation in the crime was DeAnna's 36-year-old husband, Ryan Andrews, is a corporate attorney who focuses in assisting retail. In third-world nations, businesses use legal loopholes to steal people's land in order to build shops. Ryan. A hard job that required him to travel often and work long hours away from home. In the tight-knit town of Leavenworth, he was well known for his court appearances and business meetings. For both his career accomplishments and, in contrast to DeAnna, his cold and distant manner. Who actively participated in the community, Ryan remained to himself, concentrating on his work, and DeAnna was left in charge of running their house and raising their 3 kids, Carlin, Castle, and Kingsley. DeAnna and Ryan were previously seen to be the ideal pair, but their relationship had been tense for a while. Over the years, the couple had grown apart, and their friends and neighbors noted that they were no longer attending the same shift activities together, and when they did, DeAnna had revealed that there was a clear conflict between them. She had conveyed to a few close acquaintances that she felt abandoned and alone in her sexless marriage. How she felt more like a single parent than a partner in their relationship because of Ryan's frequent absences. Ryan claimed to have been working overnight the night of DeAnna's death. He informed the investigators at his downtown Kansas City office that he had not seen anything out of the ordinary. Detective Al the next morning, upon his return home, he discovered DeAnna's deceased corpse. Wand and her group were curious about Ryan's alibi and how he responded to discovering his wife dead. Asked him a lot of questions to see whether his sadness was real or if it was a cover-up. Ryan remained collected and controlled during the interview, and Ed responded to inquiries in a methodical manner. He conveyed his profound grief for DeAnna's passing in a tone, yet there was a detached quality to his manner that. He acknowledged that he and DeAnna had been experiencing marital issues, which the investigators found worrisome, but maintained that he would never have hurt her and that he still loved her, but the police were unable to disregard the likelihood that DeAnna's romance with their neighbor's daughter and Ryan's strained marital. When asked where he was on the day of the murder, Cassidy Morris could have given a reason for the crime. Ryan insisted that he had been at work the night of the murder, displaying time-stamped emails with phone logs as evidence, but even though his alibi seemed to be credible, the investigators weren't totally persuaded. They pointed out that Ryan had the resources and expertise from his line of work to maybe cover his evidence that he was complicit in the murder despite his composed manner, Ryan's tense marriage, and He remained firmly in the focus of the inquiry because of the coldness in his relationship with DeAnna. As they began to put him together, the investigators understood they needed to watch him closely. Destiny was the third suspect in the inquiry into the circumstances surrounding DeAnna's death. Destiny, the 42-year-old single mother of Morris Cassidy, put in a lot of overtime as a stripper. She was well known in Topa, close to the state capitol building, for her commitment to. Despite her hectic schedule, she often works multiple shifts to support Cassidy and make ends meet. Itinerary Destiny was known as a powerful, no-nonsense lady who really cared. DeAnna Andrews and her daughter Destiny have been friends for a number of years. Was first based on common experiences as housewives and moms, but with time, Destiny started to see behavioral changes in her daughter Cassidy, who had grown more reclusive and her. When Destiny's intimate bond with her mother seemed to be eroding, she had a suspicion that something was occurring between DeAnna and Cassidy, but she was unaware of it till a few days before to DeAnna's death. After they got into a furious disagreement in Dee's driveway, Destiny approached DeAnna about her worries. Destiny felt protective of DeAnna when she insisted that she cease having sex with her daughter. She disliked the thought of her daughter becoming engaged in something that may hurt her, Cassidy. Both ladies were upset after the altercation, and Destiny left the meeting feeling uncomfortable when Detective Alga Wand and her crew knew about the altercation and hauled Destiny in for interrogation. The investigators questioned Destiny about her connection with DeAnna and the reasons behind it. Confronting her, Destiny, who was normally calm, displayed symptoms of tension while being questioned. She acknowledged that she and DeAnna had a disagreement, but she denied any involvement in her passing. Highlighted her worry for Cassidy's welfare and her want to keep her daughter safe. The investigators questioned Destiny about her whereabouts on the night of the murder to keep her safe. According to Destiny, she had been working a night shift and had left work just before midnight. Supplied time-stamped documents to back up her alibi, but the police were unable to forget how heated her confrontation with DeAnna had been and how close they lived. Destiny's protective demeanor and her close proximity to the Andrews residence kept her at the murder scene. On the detectives' radar, they kept digging into her participation in order to find any potential connection between the incidents that resulted in DeAnna's death and her disagreement with DeAnna Weil. The investigators understood they couldn't rule Destiny out just yet since she insisted on her innocence. Destiny's involvement in the case remained crucial, and the inquiry into DeAnna's murder was far from over. Piece of the jigsaw on September 12, 2018, when the summer heat above Leavenworth started to subside. At approximately 10 in the morning, Kansas, a breakthrough in the investigation was made. When a technician from the nearby electronics repair business Tech Fix called Alga Wand. The technician on Main Street had been repairing a broken home security system that was brought in by. When a consumer discovered something strange, he discovered many hidden video files saved inside the systems. These files, in particular, included video that had been shot at the Andrews residences. When the technician discovered DeAnna Andrews's corpse in the master bedroom, the importance of what he had found, he called the police investigator right away. Wandel and her group got to TechFix almost away to examine the films that were dated across the months before the murder. The recording supplied grim evidence. However, what was more unsettling was that DeAnna was having sex with Cid Morris. It was discovered that DeAnna had been covertly recording their sex, most likely without. In addition to confirming the illicit affair, Cassidy's knowledge of the films demonstrated the growing. One of the last recordings, taken only days before the murder, shows tension between DeAnna and Cassidy. Bill was heard saying that if Cassidy attempted to leave her, he would reveal their connection. The video showed a sexual relationship that had deteriorated, with DeAnna becoming more. This fresh proof marked a turning point in Cassidy's possessiveness and growing dread. Detectives discovered throughout the inquiry that DeAnna's murder was more than simply a crime of passion. Was the terrible outcome of a romance that had gotten out of hand, the video also gave important information about Cassidy's mental state before to the murder, indicating that she. With this fresh information in hand, the detective warned and her actions may have been motivated by fear and desperation. Crew went back to the Andrews residence to look for the covert cameras that had recorded the video. They discovered a number of tiny, discrete devices scattered about the bedroom, which further validated DeAnna's part in filming the films. This revelation dramatically changed the course of the. With a better grasp of the dynamics at work, the detectives started their investigation, concentrating more on Cassidy's role, which will get them closer to the reality of what transpired. As the inquiry came to a head on the night of DeAnna Andrews' death, all eyes were. The investigators were given information about Cassidy Morris via the concealed video that was found in DeAnna Andrews' house. Detective Alga warned on September 14, 2018, with crucial evidence that clearly linked her. And her team ultimately decided they had enough to arrest Cassidy Morris, who was just 18 years old. Previously full of promise, this popular high school senior was well known for her gregarious demeanor and academic accomplishments. Cassidy was the kind of girl who seemed to have it all, but only in private. She and DeAnna were ensnared in a sexually abusive and covert relationship that had gotten out of hand. Cassidy's formerly promising future had waned due to DeAnna's. The conflict between possessiveness and domineering manipulation on the night of DeAnna's murder. When the two reached a breaking point, DeAnna was seen in the covert video threatening to divulge. She had recorded their sexual encounter as a sex tap, so if Cassidy ever attempted to break up with her, that was the last straw for Cassidy, who was in a panic and felt trapped and afraid. Cassidy took the rifle from DeAnna's bedside table out of desperation and rushed to the murder site with his. Broken glass and toppled furniture revealed the tale of a bloody conflict that had culminated in. At 8 p.m., tragic Detective Wandel, who was now sure in her case, proceeded swiftly. September 19. Cassidy was sitting on the sofa in the main room with her when the cops arrived at the Morris residence. The cops gently explained the circumstances to Mother Destiny and arrested Cassidy for the. Cassidy was clearly upset by the death of DeAnna Andrews, but she didn't fight back. Instead, she seemed almost pleased. Destiny, on the other hand, was shocked that her secret was finally being revealed. She had never notion that her daughter had been in such a risky relationship, as well as the fact that she was left speechless by the arrest, which rocked the neighborhood and her family. The news Ryan received saddened her, particularly her husband, and their 3 kids. He had a feeling that something was off in his marriage, but he never thought it would turn out this way. The Andrews family, which was previously thought to be the pinnacle of suburban affluence, was horribly destroyed in the days that followed. Further information about DeAnna's unhealthy sexual connection with. When Cassidy came to light, the community saw a complicated picture of emotional abuse and desperation. Which at first thought Cassidy was a bright young lady started to interpret her behavior via a new perspective that considered the psychological suffering. Cassidy's arrest signaled the start of a drawn-out legal procedure that would need everyone involved to face the sinister realities that had been concealed under their ostensibly flawless lies. Cassidy Morris' trial started in late November 2019, drawing the interest of the courtroom was crowded with excited spectators and members of the media from the whole Leavenworth, Kansas, community. To observe the course of the case, the prosecution, headed by 50-year-old District Attorney Brian Chung, an experienced attorney known for being fair but firm, said that Cassidy had committed. Chung's cold-blooded murder depicted Cassidy as a cunning young lady who, when threatened with losing control of her covert relationship with DeAnna Andrews, decided to take DeAnna's life rather than deal with the fallout from Cassidy's defense. Lisa Martell, a 38-year-old lawyer who is well known for her fervent support of youthful clients, using a different strategy. Martell claimed that Cassidy was a victim of DeAnna's psychological and emotional abuse. Manipulation. She provided proof from the unreleased tapes demonstrating how DeAnna had become more driven Cassidy to the verge of despair by coercing and threatening her. Martel said. Despite being terrible, Cassidy's acts were motivated by extreme dread and a feeling of helplessness. Asked the jury to take into account the suffering Cassidy had gone through in the months before. The trial for the murder was extremely taxing, particularly for DeAnna's family, who were seated in the courtroom daily, hearing the specifics of DeAnna's covert existence and the incidents that caused her death. Ryan Andrews was particularly disturbed to hear testimonies of his wife's affair and the deceptive actions she had taken against Cassidy and the triplets. Young people too young to comprehend the proceedings were excluded from the trial for the rest of their lives. After days of evidence and deliberations, the jury was altered by the death of their mother. Cassidy Morris was found guilty on November 29, 2018, of manslaughter rather than murder. The evidence of Cassidy's psychological state and DeAnna's manipulation swayed the jury. Decided to convict her on a lesser offense, and Cassidy was given a 10-year jail term with the family's responses to the punishment, which included the chance of release after 5 years, were conflicting. Trying to make amends with the lady they knew about the secret was too easy of a punishment. Life that ultimately resulted in her demise, while others in the community show sympathy for Cassidy by acknowledging the challenging conditions that led her to perpetrate the crime at the end of the trial. Caused many people in Leavenworth to consider the difficulties that may be concealed behind closed doors and the terrible effects they may have on everyone's life after the trial. Cassidy Morris started serving her term in a penitentiary facility after the events were significantly altered. Her life had taken a fatal turn at the age of 18 at a facility in Leavenworth, Kansas, not far from her home. Cassidy entered educational and counseling programs while incarcerated in an effort to repair her life from the wreckage of what had been her once promising and bright future now seems to uncertain. As she dealt with the fallout from her actions, DeAnna Andrews' family found it difficult to recuperate from the catastrophe that had ripped their lives apart. Ryan Andrews, who was once the discovery made it impossible for a prominent corporate lawyer to resume his powerful career. He was devastated by the events surrounding his wife's death and her covert affair. Decided to take a leave of absence from his work in order to devote more time to parenting his kids, Carlin, Kingley and Castle, but the triplets, who were just 9 years old, had lost their mother in the most terrible. Ryan tried his best to keep them informed on the case's specifics, but the emotional wounds were still there. As a longtime worker, Destiny Morris, Cassidy's mother, likewise had to overcome adversity. Destiny felt guilty about not being able to support her kid and wondered how she could have missed the. She continued to assist Cassidy throughout her imprisonment despite indications of her daughter's misery. Campaigning for her early release and paying her frequent visits, the community was once close-knit and conservative were shocked by what had happened in their peaceful area, DeAnna. The trial that followed Andrews's death served as a warning, a reminder that even at the most dark secrets may be hiding under the surface of apparently ideal neighborhoods, friends. Even the neighbors who had previously praised the Andrews family began to reflect on their own lives with doubt. As life in Leavenworth gradually returned to normal, what may be concealed behind their own closed doors is revealed. DeAnna's tragic death and the trial that followed will always be remembered as a somber reminder of the unseen suffering and desperation that may have unthinkable repercussions.